Welcome to our news program. I'm Diana Longry. Thank you for tuning in. To help me with this week's news is my co-anchor, Mr. Kevin Berglund. Thank you, Mr. Berglund, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, on previous news programs, we have discussed the organics collection program of Ramsey County and talked about the little organics pail that you can pick up so that you too can be part of the organic recycling collection program of Ramsey County. Well, finally, we have been able to obtain one of these little buckets of our own. Here it is, the organic collection slop pail that you can keep in your kitchen to put your potato peels in. And then once you have this full of potato peels and eggshells and other types of organics that are acceptable to be part of the organic collection process, then you can go and take your little organic pail of organic collectibles, and you get in your car, and then you drive several miles to the nearest organic drop-off point, dump it in, and then get in your car and drive back home again to be part of the program of Ramsey County. That sounds like a really effective program, Mr. Berglund. Your comments?
Well, and I think for it to be effective, it's going to, each person, this is for free. For free, Ramsey County says you can pick these up, but I think you will need more than one. I'm suggesting that if you go to one of your locations and you want to participate in this program, you maybe grab about 10 of them. But the only issue is they're really not stackable, because every day when you're done, you would want to bring that outside, and there's really no latch on it either, so animals will be able to push that in, but maybe you can buy some bricks and put bricks on top of them. But they're not stackable, and then it would make more sense if you were going to drop them off at the dumpster that you let them freeze outside and then push them out if you could, but you'll want to warm them up in your car, because if you freeze them solid, they might stick and you dump them over.
And if you leave them in your car, and your car is for any length of time, and your car gets warm because of the solar radiation coming in through the windows and all, well, then they'll kind of get mushy and sloppy, and what if one of them dumps over in your car?
Right. I would think that they should have more of a latch on there, because it's just another, if you're throwing this, I guess you're not going to be throwing in your back seat, but maybe you're going to put them in your trunk.
Because while you drive, it could tip over, even if it's only one.
But it's handy because if you're on the bus, you could if you're taking the bus as transportation, you can hold it. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to allow these on the bus, if you're going to be riding them around all day, because if you're going to bring it to work, and then after work you're going to take the bus over to the, there's only one in the city of Maplewood to dump it out. Well, so I don't think it's really meant for bus riders.
Right, and you'd only be able to carry 2 on the bus, 1 per hand.
Right.
And then you'd have 2 pails.
And in terms for a bicycle, because I think it would be very hard to carry and dangerous to carry if you were on a bicycle. But if you do have one of those big SUVs, one of those Cadillac Escalades, where you have the hatch in the back, or a big Dodge truck, maybe it'll be a Dodge pickup truck or a Dodge Caravan truck, you probably can slide it in the back hatch and have no problem. But I don't think it's meant for people as much who are riding around in economy cars. But I think a lot of the policymakers and elected officials down in Ramsey County, they're all equipped with the big vehicles.
Right.
They're not thinking in their consideration, in their entitled privilege situation. I don't think they're necessarily thinking about bus riders or bicycle riders or light rail riders, or they're thinking about their situation, driving from home to the county board meeting or wherever they're going in their big vehicle, big Escalade like Vicki Reinhardt, or I think a couple of other of them in a big van type situation. And they have some beautiful crossover vehicles. Now, I don't know if you're an older person and you can't walk very much, if maybe the police or the Ramsey County Sheriff will come and pick this up every day for you.
That would be
a 911 emergency.
That would be the county pickup program, right?
Because your garbage guy isn't going to pick this up.
And if you had not actually gotten one of these yourself, you would not realize that it does not have a way to snap the lid on. That it is totally without any kind of way to keep that lid on tight.
Right.
And
you would think there would be a way that you could engage it from the handle. But of course, these handles, they don't look too durable, so you want to make sure you maybe don't fill it full. But of course, you're not going to be filling it full every day.
And I think that they do have some kind of, like you said, on the handle, a way to lock it because it does lift up over it to hold it down, but then that means...
Oh, I see, yes.
But that means, though, it goes to your point about not being stackable. Because if you need to keep the cover down latched,
right,
and you need to keep the handle up in order to latch the cover,
right,
you can't stack another one on top of it.
Right.
And so that means that if you then take this handle down and you are attempting to stack them,
right,
that means that all the ones below are not latched. And so if they do get dumped over because your dog has a big tail, for instance, and goes like this against it, it will knock over the whole kit and caboodle, and all the bottom ones, because they didn't have their cover latched, will then all spill open and all your organics will be on the floor. And then, of course, because the dogs like smelly stuff like that, they'll be rolling in it. And, of course, that will be a big mess.
Right.
But anyway, to let you know, we have gotten our organics collection pail, and we wanted to share it with you to show you that we are in step with the times.
I'm kind of puzzled why they didn't put a more heavy-duty handle on this. This thing seems to be the thing that will
Well, how heavy
break
are
first.
your organics?
Right. Well, if you're dealing with some heavy stuff like potato peels, they can add up quickly.
Or like, you got rotten pears.
Right.
With spoiled apples.
Yes.
That gets
Bananas.
That's right. Well, sometimes, if you leave those onions, in the bag too long, a 3-pound bag, would this hold a 3-pound bag of spoiled onions?
I think that handle would. And of course, it's almost like it's made for your cat or your dog to lift it up, or if you put it outside the raccoon.
Yeah, I know a raccoon would open this up very easily. They'd even figure out the handle part.
Right.
Well, anyway, there you go. So now our next news, story for this evening is that Mr. Berglund had the opportunity of going to the Ramsey County Truth in Taxation hearing a few weeks back, and it was at the Maplewood Library. It was advertised, and a lot of people were there. So, Mr. Berglund, why don't you set this up for our viewers?
Well, I think the Ramsey County elected officials and the people they appoint to be their administrators think of themselves as the best and brightest. And of course, that's always the explanation they give when they announce they're going to have more fee increases, more fees, more tax increases. They keep explaining that they want that, if you want the best and brightest, you're going to have to pay for it. So yes, over at the Ramsey County, they took and used their little, and this would be over at the Maplewood, the newer Maplewood Library. They have a little meeting room there, used, I think, mostly by the political parties to have their caucuses, but it's a small room, and they decided that of all the places in Ramsey County where they could hold a public hearing, including all the schools, all the school gymnasiums, all the churches, all the county buildings, this would be the ideal location. So it's designed to be pretty intimate and pretty small, and Ramsey County is going to have their big conversation about their humongous property taxes that they've jacked up this year in this little room. So even the whole concept, if anybody, the best and brightest should think that this is doomed to be a failure from the beginning. And there's no explanation on how the county manager came up with this brilliant idea. But of course, people want to talk to their county board, and they want responses from them why they're doing it. And so people are upset, even though for the most part in Ramsey County, everybody pretty much feels beaten down and they feel hopeless, but they want to at least try to send a message for the future, even though I think this crew that came realized these people are all locked in, and you don't have your hearing from the public at the very end of the process, hours before you're going to vote for the big, final vote for the big. You have it months prior in the beginning when you can adjust everything.
Right.
So it's all kind of designed to be a sham.
Right. So in other words, if they really wanted to hear from the people and how they felt about the budget and changes that could be made to the budget and adjustments, that these kinds of hearings could have been held months ago, should have been held months ago, rather than just merely a week or two before the final vote is taken, because the budget is indeed, for all intents and purposes, written in stone. I mean, it is what it is. And your point is well taken that knowing that they were having these increases, that they should have anticipated that there was going to be a lot of people attending, knowing that there was quite an uproar about the proposed closure of the Ponds golf course. They should have anticipated there was going to be a lot of participation. And so they should have made arrangements with Maplewood and the YMCA to use one of the big, huge rooms that are in the community center that the YMCA runs over there right off of White Bear Avenue. Right? Oh, gee whiz. In the same parking lot as where you can dump off your organics collectibles.
Right.
See, and then everybody who came to that meeting, they could have brought their organic collectibles and killed two birds with one stone. But with that aside, that's a large, large room that can really accommodate many people.
Well, there's many venues, and of course,
Yes.
There's a community room over there, and of course, in Maplewood at Community Center, there's a big theater. There's a bigger theater over just a couple miles away over at the North St. Paul High School. There's all kinds of opportunities that there's gyms.
Oh, you know, Ramsey County, they own the Aldrich Arena. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to fill that,
Right.
but that's a large venue.
Right. So there's all kinds of possibilities, and of course, even though they do have, I do believe they have a cable drop there, a cable television where they can hook cameras if they refuse to go live with their trucks, which they could, the public access cable trucks. They could have at least made an attempt to put it on cable, but instead, their big attempt was to put it on YouTube, to run it live on YouTube. Of course, that again assumes that all the people in the county, at one time they say the county is aging, Maplewood is aging, and what are we going to do about that? And what they do is they run not cable TV where an 80-year-old just has to click the button and go to the next station. They run it apparently on YouTube. So good luck. I mean,
So seniors, get out your laptops.
yeah, and know how to figure it out. I mean, I understand
Yeah,
people
that's right.
who do this every day know how to run YouTube, and YouTube is a wonderful site, but it is not really set up to be user friendly in the same sense as cable TV.
Well, that's right. If you don't know where to find it on the internet, on YouTube, you're looking at a world of presentations.
Good luck
from
finding-
all
yeah.
around the world. That's exactly right. However, if you stay tuned to the end of this program, you'll see information on how you can subscribe to our news programs on YouTube, because we have 3 YouTube channels, news channels that you can subscribe to. Now, with our film footage, set this up. You got there to the meeting, and Gosh, did anybody show up?
Well, sure, it was full and it was overflowing the room, and I'm assuming that the Ramsey County, one of their biggest aspects, just like the city of Maplewood, is public safety. So you would think that the leaders, the public policies officials, who are mostly have a big stake as a core value of public safety, would be concerned that the room would at least correspond to the listing on the fire code. In other words, there couldn't be more people than the fire marshal has said can be in that room for public safety reasons. And if somebody's going to show the example of that, it should be the government at their own meetings.
Well, let's take a look at our first clip. That looks like you trying to get into the room.
Right.
And you could see there were many people in the entrance to that room trying to get into the room, just standing there with their phones because they couldn't get into the room. Now, was there also something set up outside of the room for people to hear what was going on in the room, that they could be outside the room? Explain that.
Well, and I apparently they were publicizing that you could go over to the librarian's desk, that might have a laptop, and they have set up YouTube, so you could watch it on their little small screen over in the other corner of the building on the laptop, so people could congregate around, apparently behind the librarian's desk, and watch it there. I don't know when people are watching their phone, if they're just checking their emails or if they're trying to get YouTube on their phones. Of course, all that is doing YouTube on your phone. Of course, it's all possible, and people with the best phones probably don't have a big issue with it. But I think it's cumbersome and hard to use. And again, there's no communication on YouTube.
Right, there's no interactive communication back and forth. And also, if you are watching it on your phone, that would mean that you would also have to make sure that you had your headphones with you so you could be listening to it, because you can't just have it on speakerphone, because if everybody had it on speakerphone, it would just be reverberating in the entry there and nobody could hear anything. So there's a lot of technical problems with having a setup like that.
And for dear life, there was, even on those laptops, you could hear something happen there, then you could hear it on the other side of the room happen. People would clap here, and then you hear the clapping coming from the computer. So it's that reverberation. It's all chaotic. It's all unplanned. And of course, what's really odd is these Ramsey County officials consider themselves planners.
Well, let's continue with our next clip.
TV here now.
Well, they're going to send the officer out here because they wanted me to ask you guys if you were going to deal with it or if they got to do it to bring the law out here to deal with it, the overflow of the room. So I think I don't know what I think it's Maplewood Police that are coming out here.
And who brought that up?
No, I seen one of the librarians going in there, so I gave them a call for him. And they wanted me to make sure that you guys had a chance to deal with it. And I said, well, yeah, I talked to them. I'll talk to them more. That's why I'm talking to you, because they wanted me to talk to you more.
So let me get this straight. You then talked to the librarian about the overcapacity of the room. And what did they tell you?
Well, the librarian, at least, was concerned. The librarians, of course, they go by the book, and they realize that you can't have a room that doesn't have public safety, and so they're going to step in and try to talk to the county board and the administrators. These are all their pay bosses.
So did they do that?
Well, they tried to get in there, but I don't know. Maybe they couldn't get the mic. You couldn't see if they did that. One made the attempt, but I'm sure Commissioner Jim McDonough shot them down if they could even get to him to talk about it.
So then tell us then about how did the police come into this picture?
Well, the police, you would think that this was a fire code issue, so you would think the fire department, fire marshal of Maplewood, would come and show up to deal with the issue because the fire marshal is the expert on that, or the fire marshal's department. But
So the fire marshal was called.
absolutely, but the fire marshal in Maplewood doesn't exist.
Okay, so a call was made to the fire marshal in Maplewood, which doesn't exist. And so who did the call get transferred to then?
Well, the call from 911, because Paul Schnell, who's now the Minnesota Department of Correction, his point was that if you have any issue at all, any public safety issue, any access, you want to call 911. So they switched it over to the Maplewood Police.
Okay.
And so it seemed odd that the Maplewood Police their squad cars would come over. You would have thought they would have switched it over to Ramsey County or Sheriff's Department, but they switched over to Maplewood Police. So they threw the Maplewood Police in this big political meeting. And they really have I don't believe they have any training or information on fire codes, but maybe they do.
Okay, well, let's take a look at our next clip.
Yeah, I called up because I noticed that the room was way over her capacity, and I didn't know
Can you
if
just step right over there? I'll talk to you in
Okay,
a second,
yeah,
sir.
thank you.
very
Yeah.
much.
So, yeah, I wasn't the library. They just kind of figured much bigger turnout.
So that looks like a Maplewood police officer. Who's she talking to?
Well, I think initially there she's talking to the Ramsey County librarian of the Maplewood branch. And if I recall correctly, that might have been the one who tried to get in to talk to the county board about the issue that they should deal with this overcrowding. Now, of course, you can see she's fairly young. She seems very confident, and she's going to address whatever issue is in front of her. But that's where they're going to begin.
Okay, well, let's see where this transpires from here.
All right, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, how's it going?
Good, very good.
Good,
We're
okay.
from Put Your Hands Together Productions, and we wanted to videotape this too because it's a public hearing to hear from the public. That's what it's set up for the public to actually be able to get in and address
Yeah.
their elected officials.
Sure.
And I just came in and I noticed this room is way, way over capacity. It has to be. And this is the government itself that's putting it, so that would be. There seems to be a problem when the government is enforcing others' capacity limits, and then the fire code must have some significance. So I thought I would call up and see what you guys decided to do, whether you're going to let it. I didn't call you guys. I called the fire department, or I thought they would
and it's
call
not
me
a
the
fire issue.
I thought
it's
fire
the police
marshal.
end up
Okay.
enforcing it. So,
I'm-
I'm going to go take a peek and
Yeah.
basically determine if I think that it is a legitimate fire hazard or not.
Okay, she's going to take a peek and see if it's a legitimate fire hazard. Now, we already saw the first clip, which showed that the room was overflowing to capacity, that the entryway to the room was not clear, it was full of people, and that coming out of the room, it was still full of people. So even if something happened in the room, nobody could maybe necessarily get out of the room very easily. But she's going to take a peek. So let's find out what happens after she's taken a peek.
The limit of the room, because every
He
room
says
has to.
120 or 125, but that doesn't matter.
Okay.
The limit is posted as like a general safety precaution.
Okay, I didn't know that, so that is meaningless actually. It's
So
at the
when I
discretion.
go back there,
Okay.
if it is literally people are, packed in there, then if I determine that it is actually a fire hazard, then I'll speak with everyone, and then I'll talk to a couple other people here and see if there's a way that we can get a couple people shuffled out and watching the monitors so that we can try to control that a little bit better.
Now, I heard something very fascinating, that the capacity for the number of people that can be in the room for the fire code is only a suggestion, that it's not really enforceable.
Right, wow. I guess,
Wow, that's a revelation.
Right.
Maybe we have some viewers out there that are professionals in the area of this, or in this field, and they can either confirm or deny that those capacity numbers are only aspirational.
well, and of course that becomes a issue when you have a venue like the Myth, which has a big band or music venue playing. There's that question of, I guess, are they responsible for watching the limit, or if that's all just at the discretion of the enforcers?
Well, now you bring up a good question, because I would suspect that if it were the Myth and they had a capacity number that they could not exceed, that Maplewood would definitely hold them to that and would enforce it to the letter. That they would not say, well, we're going to take a peek and determine if it looks okay to us, and it's just sort of a suggested number. I don't know that the city of Maplewood would have that way of looking at things when it came to the Myth. But apparently they have that way of looking at things when it comes to Ramsey County.
And
now that, of course, could pose an issue, because remember, the Myth has sued the city of Maplewood for unequal treatment.
And of course the Myth is only half a block or block down from this Ramsey County library.
But it appears unequal treatment.
Yes.
Well, let's continue with our film footage.
As you being able to go in there and videotape,
yes.
it's, if you can get in there and videotape, as long as I'm not concerned about the overall capacity
Right.
in there, I have absolutely no problem with
Thank
you
you.
stepping in there.
Yep.
But
Thank
I'm
you.
also not going to kick people out to then have you go in, right? Because
No,
they're also people
I agree.
in the public
I can appreciate that.
Okay.
But let me, I do want to speak too, so I want to make sure to sign me up there, because I don't even know where to sign up. And when I called the fire department, or I called 911, actually a lot of people have already left because they're so disgusted, and more people have came out here. So if you thought it was packed, if you think it's packed now, when I came in, it was even more.
It's okay that if you go in there to film, and that's fine. She's not seeing how that's going to have any impact on the capacity. But it's almost like you had to reserve an opportunity to be able to speak as well. Explain a little bit more what was going on in that clip.
Well, of course, to film, you would hope that they would, because you really don't know what kind of space they had for media operations. Apparently, you can surmise that the government has their little camera and they're pushing it out on YouTube, and as their primary thing. But this is with these humongous property tax increases, these unjustified reevaluations of people's property that Ramsey County did, apparently by some professional process. They could have expected there would be maybe newspapers there if they were interested, and photographers to get a story, and camera people. So it would have just made sense that they would have had that opportunity available. But of course, Ramsey County, I don't think the county board, the county manager really didn't want media, and they wanted it to be cumbersome, because it is a story that they don't really want to be highlighted much.
And your reference to the fact that other media might want to cover this story is similar to what happens in other venues, where oftentimes if they anticipate that it's a newsworthy item, whereas the taxes for the Ramsey County might be newsworthy perhaps, that in such venues they actually have an area designated for the media, that they have a little area roped off so that the media has an access point where they can be in a place where they can set up their equipment without being jostled by
Right.
the other people. And the other people, if they want to be away from the media, they don't have to be by them because they know where the media is. So it's not uncommon at all. And we've gone to any number of town hall meetings in various locations across the nation where we see that that is the setup, that you have a public event, newsworthy event, where it's you've got elected officials there. They know that the media might find this interesting. They don't know if they're going to be there, but they, as a courtesy and as a protocol, have an area set up for the media. And certainly that would have made sense here.
Right. And of course, I don't think this is something unique, or like you said, this is just commonplace. And everybody knows, even at these, now that the presidential race is in full swing, that there's a special spot for the media, whether they're filming, once again, another Trump rally, or they're filming a rally of Elizabeth Warren. It's all the same. And of course, you can go to countless other meetings, and they always have that availability. But the Ramsey County has it that fight your way in and squeeze behind people to get in, because that's how we do it in Ramsey County. It's all a jostle to find a place. And as for if you want to address the county board, whether you want to address it on how this is the incorrect room, or that they should obey the fire marshal, they should comply with the fire marshal's law, at least at the very least, to set a good example for other citizens and residents and businesses in the area, that you had to sign up somewhere, but there was really, to be seen, no table, or there was no sign, or there's no indication how you would actually register. So there was not a person out there, despite all these Ramsey County top officials you would have thought they could have at least put one person behind a desk with a sign and have a pen and sign here. Mm-hmm. But I guess they were all involved with other high valued meetings. Now it is kind of odd that you have this many top officials of Ramsey County there hanging out, and they all seem to be looking the other way at what's going on.
I do want to point out to the viewers another concern that I have, in that when you have a meeting such as this in a room that is under capacity for the number of people who want to attend, you have people who will then just leave.
Absolutely.
And when they just leave, one, the county board doesn't have the benefit of whatever that person's comments could have been. That person in leaving doesn't have the benefit of having heard what other people in the community say as part of the public comment, which is as important of a function of this type of meeting as being able to say your piece to your elected official. Because these types of public forums, they don't just serve the function of, well, then the elected officials get to hear what some people in the community say, and they gave them that shot to say their few words, and then they're going to go vote the way they want to vote anyway. It gives people who are attending from the public a chance to hear what their neighbors are saying. And when you don't have a room that's the proper capacity, you shortchange the residents of the community, because now you are denying them that opportunity to hear what other people's opinions are in their community. That's how you keep, in my opinion, how you keep your residents in your community engaged and interested in what's happening in their community, because you're talking about what's happening in your community. If you don't hear what anybody else is saying, you're not going to just talk to an empty wall about it.
And I think the county board and the county managers would say, for crying out loud. The only reason we're doing this is because the state law requires it. Everything we're doing is already a foregone conclusion. We really don't want to hear people air their issues, and if people want to propose a solution, it's way past, we really don't have time to listen to that. So we're just going to sit there and pretend to be polite. Of course, that setting the situation up as they have set it up makes it all very uncivil and does cause delegitimacy in this idea that as you're seeing with the impeachment, that democracy has to be preserved for future generations. These guys are so much in the moment of just getting their budget passing and their tax increases passed. They really, Jim McDonough and that crew, Vicky Reinhardt and these other commissioners, really have no long-term sight for what is a civil discourse, because they've set the situation up to be an uncivil discourse, to just be done with it and just get it over as soon as possible, because
It's a
we're in charge.
formality. Yeah, it's a formality. You know, we're in charge. It's a formality. We have to do it because the law makes us. Okay. Well, let's continue with our film footage.
My main goal is just to see how you guys respond. You know, not you respond, but how Ramsey County responds, because this is all set up to, I mean, how are you going to shut Ramsey County down?
What he said is,
They're your
is
bosses.
that they didn't anticipate this many people showing up, which that's kind of on their end. That's not really on mine.
No, it's not your on it at all. It's more about their credibility and how they set up the room to set up this, because there's all kinds of big rooms they could have had a comment in, but they set it in a small room so that everybody can't fit and people walk away without speaking.
People walk away without speaking. Well, then that's how you make your residents disenfranchised and feeling, what does it matter? What is there? What can they do that will have any impact on anything?
And for all practical purposes, I think most of these people who are already coming there are coming to see. Their general feeling is it's all a sham, that you're not going to be able to persuade them to do anything, but they're coming to send a message that we're upset. And maybe if you guys open your ears for just a blink, you might actually hear that. But of course, if you look at these Ramsey County commissioners, they're all shut down and they're not really listening anyway. They're certainly a little more polite sitting up there and not saying anything, if that's what being a polite elected official is, not responding, not acknowledging what you're saying, not saying if what you're saying is on the wrong track, not giving you any indication if they're thinking in that direction. Polite is just sitting there like a stump on the log. They are certainly more polite than the Maplewood officials that just, you can't even get anything out, and the mayor, Mary Abrams, is haranguing you and interrupting you and doing other things to block the whole flow of information and a conversation.
Absolutely. So let's continue with our next clip.
Kevin Berglund with Put Your Head Together Productions. We wanted to film. Okay.
Now, those individuals, tell us a little bit more about what they were doing. Obviously, they didn't want to talk to you.
Well, these seem to be all the chain of command over at Ramsey County. And so the police officer is going to go talk to the top officials in Ramsey County and try to explain to them what they need to do. Of course, you can only imagine, based upon what everybody knows about, many people know about the pompousness and the arrogance of Ramsey County officials. They know that they're at the top of the chain of command. And I don't think you're going to find a lot of, there's not going to be a lot of fear or discourse from them, because I think their general attitude is, we're going to do what we want to do, because we're in charge.
It's our building, right? It's our building. Well, let's continue with our next clip where we get to listen in on some of the conversation.
Our max load, so to speak, as people are now starting to come out. And the rubber chairs have opened up and we're able to see some people. So it's looking at
It appears that then the big plan is that we'll shuffle some people out before we let somebody else in. Again, well, sure, that might address some of the issue about overcapacity, but it doesn't address the other fundamental issues of how to keep people engaged, because what if somebody wants to be in there to hear all the comments? Can they only be in there for 20 minutes and then they have to leave?
And it boggles my mind why any elected official does not believe that most people are interested in hearing what others are saying, more than they're actually interested in saying what's on their mind, because they want to confirm that they're on the right track, that other people see what is so obvious for them to see with their own eyes.
I think something that supports your theory is the fact that when people get their newspaper, very often the first place they turn to is the opinion page, to read the editorials, to see who wrote into the newspaper and what were they writing about. Case in point.
Right. Even though, of course, the newspaper, they have scrutinized everybody, and generally the opinions that they highlight are ones that the newspaper editors basically are agreement with. So they're using writers to actually reinforce what their view is.
Let's continue with our next piece of film footage.
I think what I heard the board chair say is about 40 people are on the list that have signed up. We would hold the meeting open until everyone who wishes to speak will speak. And so what I suggested was, I think that what I've observed in the last 15 minutes is mostly people are making their way out. We've established alternatives over here for streaming this hearing or getting people the information so they can look at it. So I think that's done. So the sign up is done. So once they get through the list, there'll be an open call for people who wish to give testimony, and then they can just approach the microphone in the order. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more then about, did the process change at all once this gentleman started deciding how they were going to deal with their overcapacity issue?
Well, this gentleman, of course, he's been there for a while. He's the communication director for Ramsey County. Now, I'm not sure if he actually has the authority to do anything, and I don't know if he's in contact with the county manager, or if he speaks for the county manager, or if he speaks for the county board. It seems, listening to him, he's more just a political event holder, a political operative, going through how we're running the event. Now, of course, as more and more people are just fed up with it and disgusted, they're gradually leaving.
Mm-hmm. Now, from your observations, would you say it was split pretty equally between people who were there with regard to objecting about the closure of the Ponds Golf Course to those people who were concerned about their property taxes?
You know, it's always very hard to say. But there was a issue there of the closing of the pond golf courses, which aggravated people more because they've seen their property taxes and they say, well, at least we want to have our property taxes well used, and we want them to be supporting public policy that we stand beside. Okay, you're going to raise our property taxes, and we're not happy about that. But then when you go and kick us in the other leg by telling us you're going to do this, that actually exasperates the situation.
Right, because they're seeing their property taxes increase and also seeing the closure of things that they like to use.
Right.
Let's continue.
So you said that you want to speak.
I want to videotape first, and because I want to videotape the comments, because you can't trust the county to tape these meetings. So for our news report, which airs, we have 3 weeks of 3 hours of news reports each week. We need video clips, so that's why I wanted to come here to get the video clips. So I know it's impossible to get in because I would be violating the law going into an overcrowded meeting. But if they would bring me in, then I could go in. But I do want to speak too. But the most important thing is to videotape. If I don't get to speak.
Well, okay, so go ahead and comment, Mr. Bergman.
Well, you can hear the clapping in the back. They weren't clapping for the government and their explanations because there was no explanation. They were clapping in the unified response, the support of people who were speaking, telling the county board to stop it and to cut it out. They were trying to send a message there, and the county board sat up there, no response. No indication of what we're going to do. We're just going to pretend because we need to do this under state law. We need to listen to it, and so we're going to bear it, and we're going to bite the bullet and not respond and not say anything. But you can see people are in support, in solidarity with what people are saying in front of the county board. And you can hear it all in the background right there.
Let's continue.
Too. I mean, they're very firm about that because these are public employees and there's all kinds of rules. They can't have the meeting over 9 o'clock because they need to close. I've never seen this library. When I've been here for the DFL club or anything like that, when it's 9 o'clock, everybody has to be out. They don't have exceptions.
Okay.
So.
Well, they told me that anyone who's on the list to speak
Who's
is
that? Is that
someone who is helping run it.
Okay.
Told me that whoever's on the list to speak is going to get their opportunity
Right.
to speak. They have 2 minutes
Okay.
to go speak. If it
I
goes past the
appreciate
meeting
that.
time, it's going to go past the meeting time.
Okay.
And this is a kind of
Yes.
exception for the county hosting something in the public library.
Right, their library.
Now, did the meeting go past 9 o'clock?
It did, and of course, as anybody who's been to public library, you don't say at the end, say, well, I would like, here, I'm almost done with my research. Could you just hang on for about 5 minutes, or let me use the bathroom before I go? When government employees, when it's time to go, they shut the building down.
It's time to go.
And it's you're out. And in places where people push that limit, like in maybe some of the Minneapolis, Hennepin County libraries, they actually have cops on duty to make sure people are removed at that time. So there is no exceptions. There is no, hey, I'm almost done with this this paper I'm writing on the computer. Just give me 10 more minutes.
So
You're done.
with that in mind, then did they let it go past 9 o'clock a little bit?
Well, and it was open, yes, and the meeting had been finished by 9 because the whole tenor is to make sure this is all done. But there were people who wanted to sit around and talk to their county commissioners, like the county commissioners committed to doing, to whatever time was necessary. But the librarians, of course, were coming in and giving the eye. You guys got to go. You guys got to go. So it was a few minutes. Everybody was out within a few minutes after 9 because that's how the system works. So whether they've had actually this communication operative, if he actually had made pre-arrangements about this, it didn't say it was evident. It wasn't like there was going to be a Ramsey County library employee on there an hour or 2 hours for sure. That means they were going to get paid for sure. That did not seem to be what was happening there because the county librarians were indicating everybody out. It's time to go. It's closed. So you judge the credibility of, because if somebody in the county wanted to stay later and they were going to get paid for stay later, as it seemed like they had indicated, it wouldn't have mattered. We're not going to be out of here till 11 o'clock. I'm being paid to be here till 11 o'clock. Go ahead, guys.
And I find it ironic that you indicated that the county commissioners were representing to the residents in attendance that they would stay as long as necessary. And then the librarians are put in the position of being the bad guy, of shooing everybody out by 9 o'clock. Because then the elected officials can say, well, I was going to be around.
Right.
Till the crack of dawn if necessary, to address all issues, to hear all people. But I guess we had to leave the library because it was 9 o'clock. Oh, those darn librarians! They kicked
Right.
us out. You see the good cop, bad cop scenario
Yes.
that's playing there, when the
Absolutely.
county commissioners definitely should already know that that's the outcome of how it would have worked out. And like you said, there should have been arrangements made that they just would have told them, you're going to be on extended hours and we're going to put in a little extra time for that and you're going to get paid. Why wouldn't they stay a little later if they were going to get paid for it?
Absolutely. It occurs all over.
Another-
It doesn't occur in the government, but it occurs all over in all other kinds of
Well,
institutions.
and another solution that they could have used, for instance, let's say the librarians wanted to close the library because they have various things that they got locked down and they got to do. Ramsey County is in charge of the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department. And so the librarians could have closed down the library because this meeting room is separate from the library. And the rest of the library could have been closed, the lights turned off, everything locked down. And then they could have had, and they could have all gone home. And then they could have just had a couple of off-duty deputies be there to be in the lobby to make sure that nobody went into the library area until everybody was out, and then lock the final doors. I mean, that would have been a very easy way to handle this after-hours issue without inconveniencing the library staff.
Well, that was all far from, their attitude was far from that. They wanted to get people pushed out of that library, despite what Ramsey County's communication talking points there told the police officer.
Well, we have one last final clip.
So some other
I
items
guess
that-
we're,
that
okay.
were-
Well, Mr. Berglund, we're going to be ending out the rest of our program with additional film footage from that Truth and Taxation meeting so that our residents of Ramsey County who hadn't had the opportunity of going there can see some of it. And then we're also going to be having additional film footage of this Truth and Taxation hearing on another program for our viewers to see as well.
And because Ramsey County did videotape this and they showed it live on YouTube that night, and they have it on YouTube, it is on YouTube, but I challenge viewers, see if you can find, if you have access to the internet, see if you can find it on their website. See how long it takes you. If, just to see how accessible, transparent, easy to use it is to get to.
Yes.
And see if you can see any announcement on their front page on where it is.
Good challenge. Thank you, Mr. Berglund, for that. And viewers, thank you for tuning in this week. We'll see you again next week. Mr. Berglund, thank you for helping with this week's news.
Thanks for having me.
And have a good holiday. Bye-bye.
Can you explain why you give yourselves such nice raises every year?
Best and brightest.
Is that why our property taxes are going up the way they are? And when did your job become a full-time job? It used to be part-time.
Thank you, Mary. Mary, we do have our appraisers down in the middle of the library if you want to talk to them about your evaluations. Next speaker, name and city, please.
Yeah, good evening. Steve Martinson, North Maplewood, and 20-year resident.
Did you sign up?
I did.
Did I call you? So I've got people that signed up. I want to take them in order, then we'll open it up to people that signed up. Because they did take, I want to make sure we get
We
those.
couldn't get in the room, Jim.
Pardon me?
We couldn't get in the room to sign up.
I think they're just taking the sign-ups up there and they're sending them up to me.
No, they're not taking any more sign-ups.
Well, we'll get them, but I've got lists
No, they're
here.
not taking any more. John told me.
Before I move to the next list, Arvin Bartz, An Yang, Gary Borja. All right, next list. I'm going to run off a couple of names, and again, I apologize. I know I'm butchering a lot of your names here, and this one is like, I don't know, but 2040 Como Avenue, Twin Lakes Road. That's a lot easier for me. Terry Larson, that's a good one, and Teresa Glass. Please come on up. Welcome, and I'm sorry about your name.
I'm Russ Heckendorf from St. Paul. I've lived in St. Paul about 40 years. I played golf at the pond since it's opened. People talk about a golf course. The Ponds is not a golf course. The Ponds is a really great golf course. It's 9 holes, it's high quality, it's in an area that doesn't have a lot of recreational resources. This kind of golf course is the future of golf. And I think it's undervalued by people who are trying to put a value on it. It would be a huge mistake to close this course. You can never duplicate it.
Thank you, Russ. Welcome. Name and city, please.
Hi, Terry Larson, Maplewood resident. And I know to many of the people here, it may seem odd that so many people came out to speak in favor of a golf course. I think if you experience it, and building on the comments of many others, it's so much more than a golf course to so many, especially a lot of the kids that use that facility and whatnot. I mean, if it closes, they won't be able to bike to or walk to another course in their area. And I think a number of people who have raised other issues have made very good points. I'm just going to touch on one of them, affordable housing. I think that the affordable housing crisis is one of the most crucial current issues we are facing in Ramsey County and really everywhere, and it's so important to me. However, I think that it sets up an unfair, false choice to pit the ponds against affordable housing. I believe that there are definitely far more ideal locations at which to address this very crucial problem. Ones that don't require taking away all the beautiful green space and wildlife habitat, not to mention the much-used golf course, but locations where vacant land and or vacant buildings now sit. And I've heard a lot about the changing demographics and the idea that the ponds doesn't fit within the new 21st century vision for the parks program. I work every single day in the education policy sector with a goal of promoting diversity and inclusion. So it's important and laudable that these are foundational principles for the future of Ramsey County parks. However, closing the ponds would not only not get Ramsey County any closer to that goal, I firmly believe it would actually bring us further away. I know there are private courses or very expensive public courses where it might be true that the users are mostly white, male, affluent, older. However, this couldn't be further from the truth at the ponds. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. Ruvelis, Twin Lakes Road, Teresa Glass, Michael Waltz, Shelley Calberry, Matthew Marks, and Tom Miller. Come on up and line up. Any order, it doesn't matter. Come on up. We'll get everybody. Welcome. Name and city, please.
Yes, my name is Michael Wolt. I'm from North St. Paul. I'm here because I'm concerned about misspending money, and it's not just the amount, although my property tax is going to go up 23% this year.
Wow.
And that doesn't include what they talked about, which is like another, they're talking at 0.56% increase this year, 2.5% next year. What's it going to do next year? One of the things I'm concerned about is things like that equity and inclusion levy. And I'm hoping you're not putting a 10% increase in the budget for that. They're talking about a staff position, a couple employees, and $3 million. You have to have programs that basically are smart. And what that means is that they're smart. It means they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time and cost constrained. And if you don't do that, you're not going to have a program that works. Equity and inclusion just sounds like a nebulous concept. It doesn't seem measurable, it doesn't seem to a way to be achievable, and it doesn't seem to be cost constrained. It just can keep going and going and going, and nobody's going to put a stop to it because it sounds good and it sounds fair, and that's wrong. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Next speaker, name and city, please.
My name is Tom Miller. I live in South Maplewood. I put in 30 years working for St. Paul in their parks and rec. And we're told that you close the park, you close the golf course, it's gone. It's not coming back. You only have so much land. You take the, the ponds away. What do we have in the south area of Ramsey County? You go to the northeast end, you have Salem, you have Kelly, you have Manitoba, you have Goodrich. What do you have down here? You have a